Hello, everyone. So this channel is just for reading. So I'm not doing like a lot of explanation. You know my website, this is me. Let's just get into the reading. And whenever you want to read something, then let me know. Let me know. We read it together, okay? It's just for reading. And what do we read today? Surprise, surprise, Sloterdijk, Infinite Mobilization. And we have already progressed a little bit on the other channel, if you look into my channel on the future. So we talked recently about the Asian Renaissance, that is the birth of Asia in Europe by virtue of a misappropriation. And now we dive into a part of the text that I haven't read yet. So it is in this context that the punchline of the Asian Renaissance in the modern West becomes clear. It makes us so pointedly aware of the question of the ancient preconditions of the modern enterprise that while we can underestimate, misunderstand, combat, and disregard it, we can in the end no longer shake it off. As long as these times remain modern, they will be haunted by the question of the compatibility of human life processes and modernity itself. And so this is interesting here. He asks the modern question of the compatibility of human life processes and modernity itself. But I would ask, isn't that always a question? Isn't it always a question of whether human life is compatible with its surrounding? Are we, as humans, something that fits into the world, as Kant has claimed? Or do we fundamentally mismatch with the world? And I mean, of course, evolutionists, they always say every animal fits perfectly in its surrounding. Maybe not evolutionists, but like hobby evolutionists at least. They say, yeah, like you just evolved into like fitting into this environment, right? But I think the fit for humans may be different than, let's say, for a polar wolf or a polar bear. And they also live in changing environments. I think the point of evolution should rather be something like producing animals that are adaptable to changing environments, I guess. So since human culture is demonstrably very old and modernity very new and unsubstantiated, it is not a secondary task to find out if modernity is an outdoing of the ancients by the means of the modern, or if its modernity puts a final end to antiquity. Okay, so he contrasts human culture is very old, modernity is new. And modernity is unsubstantiated. That means it has not yet found its substance, I guess. And then what does he want? It is not a secondary task to find out if modernity is an outdoing of the ancient by the means of the modern, or if it is modernity, if its modernity puts a final end to antiquity. So is it overcoming the ancients, outdoing? I don't know what he means here. Let's read a little bit further. This question has become so urgent, I don't understand the question, that the difference between the familiar and the foreign no longer plays any major role in these matters. So he says that we integrate Asia because it's a foreign culture that we have no relations to. And this is also the significance of the modern human being, that we live in a world where we have no relationship to anything. We are foreign even to ourselves. And therefore we have this push towards the Asian philosophies. So I think this is what he's saying here. And the question is, if we really finish antiquity by our modernity, or whether we just prolong it by trying to overcome and defeat it. I guess that's what he means. Since the most foreign traditions are no longer more foreign to us than our own. So this here is an important sentence, right? This is what he also said. before. This is the thesis. The most foreign traditions are no longer more foreign to us than our own. So antiquity is foreign to ourselves. It becomes clear how much our path towards the unparalleled has put all of the old world nature and culture reserves up for negotiation. I don't understand that sentence either. Culture reserves up. I don't know what he means here. So it seems he means that we have put off antiquity and now we negotiate our culture. Because it is by now undeniable that a universalizing modernity exists in the form of mobilization as such. So universalizing modernity has the form of mobilization as such. The question of antiquity as such pushes itself to the forefront almost violently. I don't know what he means. Then what is it that we take with us from antiquity on our trip into the unprecedented? Which dowries from the ancient world still create a link between past and future? What provisions will future generations live on during their continued exodus? How do the vessels in modern outer space stay in contact with the ancient ground controls? So is there an antiquity as such? Can we maintain a relation to antiquity? I think that's what he's asking. I have a little bit of problems comprehending this here. If you know what it is about, maybe you can leave a comment. So these very questions indicate that the Asianizing Renaissance goes far beyond the events of the Grecising Renaissance in the early bourgeois mobilization time. So he wants to say Asianizing Renaissance is different from the Renaissance we have seen in the 14th, 15th century. It is both more than and different from a mere cultural quote that will unleash something unprecedented, in allusion to an authentic antiquity. Because it already emerges after this unleashing and already has an impression of what modernity can be, it poses the question more radically than the Renaissance of the 15th and 16th century, and seeks the ancient as something that is not just as a pretext for the modern. Since the world belongs to the moderns anyway, the moment has come to inquire about the possibility of the ancient as ancient. I don't really understand, why does he want to question the ancient as ancients? I mean, it seems he says they don't belong to us anymore. Modern Asia mania is a renaissance to the extent that it sides with those antiquities, whether ancient culture or nature, that create conditions for new world adventures. So somehow the Asian mania sides with what is old, but it brings it into a new context. Thus, the new Asia manically encrypted Renaissance as such asserts the authority of the ancient in two ways. On the one hand, it stresses that modernity would not exist if it could not, as user and consumer of pre-modern resources, depend on that which it, in an ultimately self-destructive way, exploit without regeneration. On the other hand, it proves that the New World enterprise fundamentally overwhelms the ancient precepts, since modernity follows the drive to carry out an infinite project on a finite basis. I like this phrase. So modernity wants to carry out an infinite project on a finite base. So we have here two sides of that story. it exploits without regenerating, but it cannot do that, right? So it depends on that which it exploits without regenerating. So it exploits something without renewing it. And that means it tries to carry out an infinite project on a finite base. But how is that related to the Asiamanic? So maybe Asiamania expresses that we still depend on something in the past. We are not just suddenly here in modernity. We still stand, as some people say, on the shoulders of giants. On the shoulders of giants, right? It's a famous phrase. Let me just find a picture to express that. On the shoulders of giants. Yeah, this is an older picture. On the shoulders of giants. That's what we usually understand by that, right? An old medieval saying, by the way, already, that we developed on the base of previous generations. So it obeys this drive, it has constituted itself metaphysically as being towards movement. So it just wants to be empty, right? Being towards movement. This is actualized through us in the production of expanded productivity, in the will to a further reaching will, in the imagining of heightened imagination. So this is all like here using the same words again. In creation of more comprehensive creativity, in short, the movement towards ad infinitum. And we cannot achieve that, right? But yeah, when we imagine something, we just imagine something to heighten our imagination. For example, in school, I often heard the argument that we should read books because we would use our imagination and then we would heighten our imagination. But what for? What for, right? We want to be stronger in our society in order to become stronger. A will to get a stronger will. Train your will so that one day you have a very hard will. And then you can achieve everything. And this everything goes ad infinitum. So in short, we just try to move towards movement. That's what he says here. As being towards movement, modernity has defined itself as mobilization as such. In other words, being towards self-annihilation. That's a great statement. And I think I wanna have this especially marked because we always ask ourselves, okay, how can we describe ourselves? We have no direct access to mind external reality. At least that's what I believe. If you know how to get to mind external reality, let me know. Difficult philosophical problem. If you just think about 5 minutes, I'm not so sure if you found the solution to a problem that people have dealt with already 2,000 years, but maybe you can do that. Nevertheless, let's say that's not possible, then we can still try to understand our own production and ourselves. And here we see that we try to mobilize, and we just mobilize in order to further mobilize. And if that is correct, then we have really accessed a feature about the world that we create, that we just mobilize. Nevertheless, that's what I wanted to say. Keep in mind, you can also go to my blog. Maybe I should have a better information page about all the different channels that I have, just to inform you. But I think the blog can also be interesting, also like the podcast that I produce there. It's still work in progress. Yeah, it's not that I claim it's a perfect book or something that you can read. I sometimes just go over the texts and correct it. You can also follow this channel. I guess I will call that assisted reading, like assisted living or something. I'm not sure yet. That's the first one that I produce here. And yeah, if you want to like find the summaries of these chapters where I try to pack it into a more comprehensive form and relate it to other things, then you can also follow my other channels on philosophy and on the future. So we are on the shoulders of giants, right? So the shoulders of giants, that is where we stand. I have to, can I open this? Shoulders of giants. No, I cannot open this to get back here. Yeah, if you enjoyed this, then please subscribe, live long, stand on the shoulders of giants, and prosper. Bye-bye.